everyone. Welcome to Risk Roundup. As we stand on the brink of a technological tsunami in cyberspace, geospace, and space, the scale, scope, and complexity of the impact of technology transformation, revolution, and evolution will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before in any of its prior technological revolutions. The speed of the current ideas, innovations, technology, and breakthroughs has no historical precedent and is fundamentally disrupting almost every component of a nation. In addition, the breadth, depth, and impact of these changes herald the transformation of entire interconnected and interdependent systems of politics, socialization, education, innovation, production, management, markets, governance, security, and the future of humanity. If today's technology trends continue, what would our future look like? While there is no way to calculate just how this technology transformation, revolution, or evolution will unfold, one thing is clear: it changes the very fundamentals and foundation of nations, and its security and the response to it must be integrated and comprehensive for the future of humanity. To discuss future of humanity further, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Todorov to Risk Roundup. Dr. Todorov is the founder of Universal Future Foundation. He is based in Bulgaria. Welcome, Dr. Todorov. We are honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
It's my honor, Jeffrey.
Wonderful, Dr. Todorov. So, what relationship do you see between these ongoing emerging technology trends, geopolitics, and the future of humanity?
Well, this type of dilemmas has been existing since the beginning of history.
Yes.
Technology only makes the same problems more complex. Before, we were having wars with a sword in the hand. One move kills one person. But now we have sophisticated hypersonic weapons. One move and pressing the red button can destroy whole nations or even the whole planet. So we have to get clear about our basic human nature features. So all our civilization is moving in two vectors, in two dimensions. We have being given by nature, by evolution, the most sophisticated and complex tool which we can imagine now. This is the neocortex of our brain. That's where all the dramas are playing, human tragedies, wars, and so on. And as it was put by American scientist Albert Szent-Györgyi last century, we are clever enough to take advantage of neocortex to achieve what we like, but we don't know the consequences of what we are doing. So one dimension is developing technologies. We have been doing that all the time. And the other dimension is how we organize life for us humans to live together, because Homo sapiens never in the history, in the biological or evolutionary history, had the chance of individual survival. So
Yes.
we have advanced very far in the technology vector, but we are staying in the same place in the way we organize our societies. We are still Homo sapiens tribes fighting each other. And this makes every invention which we create, we turn into a weapon. And this is the biggest danger for our society.
Yes, very true. Excellent point that you made, because each of this emerging technology has dual use, dual purpose, because it could be used for the good of the humanity and it could also destroy humanity. So you're absolutely right about it, that technology creates much more complexity for the survival, security, and future of humanity. And like you said, that yes, we do need to organize and social structures and organization in a way that can help, or that can empower and make everyone understand what other cultures, what other nations, what other civilizations, and everyone is how, what impact they are going through, what pain, what suffering everybody is feeling. And hopefully, if there are some emerging trends that if we are able to develop brain net, emotion to, human to human emotion transfer without you can just communicate everything through your brain, then perhaps we will be able to see the challenges that other nation citizens and the humans everywhere in the world, the pain, suffering that they are going through, and the feelings, the complex challenges they are going through. So technology, there is a hope that technology will empower us to see those kind of challenges, and perhaps in the coming years we'll be able to, because of that, come up with processes and institutions and organizations and social order in a way that can empower and that can see the reality of the human suffering, and can uh, perhaps provide a way to empower and to secure the future of humanity. But as technology progresses at a rapid and unequal pace across the nations, how do you see these trends and the choices these nations decision makers make intersecting to create different paths to the future? Because each of these nations decision makers, they have their own ideas, they have their own philosophy, they have their own guiding principles through which they take decisions. So how do you see all these creating different paths to the future?
Okay, first, let me um, say that there is a base for comparison. I have spent 8 years in Australia, and I was very much interested in Aborigines. So they have existed, at least there are artifacts for some 60,000 years. For these 60,000 years, they never invented anything except the boomerang. They even don't have written language. All their legends, values, songs, and so are transmitted from father to son and mother to daughter. And they never changed anything in their environment. So they can continue, this culture can continue to live eternally in this mode of existence. They never created anything that can threaten their lives. But we, Western civilization, or what we call advanced countries, only in the last 200 years we have advanced technologies that bring us on the edge of self-destruction. And your introduction to the program was very precise. We are reaching the point where it is difficult to control. I have read somewhere that at 9/11, 2001, because of the system of defense of the United States, the silos of intercontinental missiles started opening, which for other countries is a sign for preparation for attack. At that time, potential adversary countries of the United States had some 17 minutes to take decision and to clarify, is it a prepared attack on us or is it something else? 17 minutes is a very comfortable period of time to take decision. But now with the newest technologies, you don't have 17 minutes. You have microseconds. And because the final move is done by a human being, if the machines and the military systems tell you you are attacked, you have no 17 minutes to control, to call somebody on the other side. You just press the red button, and that's the end. So,
Yes, you bring up an excellent point about the autonomous weapon systems that are emerging. where you will have hardly, this will be war between different AIs, AI that will be controlling all these weapons, and nations just would not have enough time. They would not, if they are not prepared, if they don't have the automized weapon systems, then, they will just not have any ability to defend themselves. And the other point that you made in the beginning of your response was about the innovation system. There are many nations like that who just don't, who have not invented, who haven't come up with any innovation in last so many decades or perhaps centuries. So that they are going to face huge challenges coming their way as this technology transformation progresses rapidly across nations, and we come up with new way of doing things like molecular manufacturing and 3D, printing, and synthetic biology, how it changes the entire, manufacturing sector and the way of, producing things. So the nations that don't have good education system, good innovation system, they are going to face very complex challenges. And as the pace of technology revolution is on its way to fundamentally transform the way, individuals and entities across nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia live in cyberspace, geospace, and space. Nations, how are they how the emerging technologies will shift the balance of power for nations, both individually and collectively, is going to be a big, question for the future of the humanity. So how do you see the balance of power shifting because of this technology transformation happening?
Uh, I have spent many decades in my former career in the international relations. So for some period of time, I was not afraid by conflicts started by state actors. They have some rational thinking. They know what are the consequences for everybody on the planet. They know that in a modern war, you can be the winner and the only inhabitant on a planet which is practically unlivable. So, but even this presumption, I don't think is any more valid, because recently I heard an interview from a big country leader who said it is connected. If there starts some small conflict, it can escalate, and then it can turn into a big war. So in this big war, if one country starts losing the war, they will press the red button, because what I heard in that interview was, why would we need a world where my country is not there? So nowadays, even the state actors are not reliable in making decisions that would be protecting the future of life on the earth. But with the development of technologies, and especially artificial intelligence, and also gene editing, there are emerging new threats. Can you imagine, we are talking again about the neocortex where everything happens. Deranged genius scientist who makes an AI program perfect to imitate attack on some of the big powers, to perfectly imitate. He maybe has only one computer at hand. And with this computer, if he can break the protection system and the cybersecurity and everything of a big country and imitate that this country is attacked, then this country immediately retaliates and starts the war without knowing that. Even these things are possible. And we know from thermodynamics that anything that is possible, the probability of happening in the long period of time becomes close to 1. So this is another type of danger based on new technologies.
Yes, it is. It is a huge complex challenge because, as you know, these artificial intelligence start automating all these weapons of warfare, irrespective of whether it's geospace or cyberspace or space. These automated weapon systems that are emerging are going to create complex humanitarian crises. So, the government nations will have to come together and define the humanitarian law, how they should, what should be permissible, what should not be permissible, and what kind of different guidelines they need to come up with, because these are very, very serious threats emerging and coming our way. And not only that, I mean, most we have to also understand what will be the most sought after technology resources of tomorrow, and how will they reshuffle geopolitical relations and threaten the future of humanity, because the speed of adoption of this technology will translate into the power gains by respective nations, or any of its components. We are not just talking about the competition and warfare between nations. We are also talking about competition and warfare between different components of a nation. There are a lot of roles of governments, will be taken over by the industries and the communities that are developing, the groups that are emerging. There is a whole new way of things that will be done. So the traditional institutions, the traditional form of doing things, everything is fundamentally changing. So which technology, I mean, from my assessment, it seems that artificial intelligence is at the top of this adaptation. But what do you see based on the observation that across nations, about which technologies these nations decision makers are trying to quickly adapt at a rapid pace?
Well, I like very much the initiatives of Future of Life, and I signed both appeals for nuclear weapons and for uh, autonomy weapon systems. And I think that we really need to concentrate more the attention of politicians and state decision makers on these problems, because at the same time, new technologies provide much more powerful chances for abundance. There is also this singularity university ideas and so on. We can live much better if we don't have a lot of violence. In Australia, in Sydney, there is the Institute of Economics of Peace, and they calculate the cost of violence. So every year, we, the humans, spend around $15 trillion on conflict. This is the cost of violence, which, with the current population of the Earth, makes close to $2,000 per person. And we know that there are people who are living per day with $2, almost half of the population. So if the behavior of politicians is more accommodated to the real problems which we are having today with the new technologies, and not on the inertia of history, then we can have a much better life, because we have reached the point of no return. Gene editing could bring new genetically modified humans who at certain point of time could think that they are superior to the rest of humans on the planet. We know what happened during the World War II when somebody thought they are superior to others. They started annihilating whole ethnicities. So can we prevent that if some new type of either artificial intelligence based agencies or genetically modified humans start sharing this idea that the current humans, 7.5 billion on the earth, are inferior to them and they don't need them or something? Can we prevent that? Somebody has to think about this. And this somebody are the politicians and state leaders.
Yes, that's an excellent point you made, because at the heart of this gene editing is going to be the intelligence, evolution of intelligence. And as you gave the example about that, if we create a divide between the humans and human society of certain humans with very high intelligence evolution, because of they were able to do the gene editing, because they were able to create or use technologies from neurohacking to biohacking to gene editing. They were able to enhance their intelligence capabilities. They were able to have a much higher level of evolution. We now don't need to depend on natural evolution of humans, because now we have all these tools and technology, CRISPR technology and gene editing tools. They give us the power to accelerate the evolution of humans. So we are in a very different time, living in a very different time. So the questions that you raise are excellent, and we will have to come up with effective answers that certain people will be able to afford that. They will be able to increase their intelligence, and there will be masses who will not be able to do that. So then how are we going to create a fair and balanced society? So the education system and the way the competition happens between individuals, for job search to college admissions to everything, all that is going to be impacted. So that is going to be a very complex challenge coming our way, and we'll have to come up with effective answers for the future of humanity. But there is also another point, that the speed of this innovation will empower different forms of government. So we see from authoritarian nations to democratic nations here in like United States and other countries. We have the democratically elected governments. Some governments are not democratically elected, some are monarchies. So we have a very different form of government structure, or the controlling structure across nations. So how do you see the innovation and the evolution and transformation being impacted because of the nature of the governments that we have, or how will the authoritarian nations do? Will they do better than the democratic nations, or what are your thoughts on that?
You made a very good point that the technologies brought us to a situation where we cannot continue to live in the same way. So first, we have to destroy some very primitive and hard precipitation of ideas. For example, there is the common thinking that all the humanity history is full of wars. There were wars and there will be wars. That's not true. Wars are not earthquake or tsunami or meteorites. Wars are anthropogenic. They are a result of decisions of people who have names and positions and so on. We have to think that we have to change our thinking of conflicts between humans. Theoretically, it is as easy as the decision until the day I was having coffee. From tomorrow, I will start having tea. But it is a decision of the same order. It is a process taking place in our brains, and democratic countries, or non-democratic, or authoritarian, totalitarian, and so on, they all continue existing.
Yes. Now, I think you made an excellent point about the wars, that perhaps the wars will always remain. But we, the citizens of all the nations, we have to define and decide which war we want to fight. Whether there should be war, and for what there should be wars. Should there be wars for just getting more power, or should there be wars to solve the complex challenges facing humanity? Because if not today, in coming tomorrow, we will have to come together as a humanity, as entire human species, to fight the wars that will happen in the deeper space, with intergalactic exploration that will be happening in the coming years, which has already started. We have already started the space satellites and the nano satellites, and we are on way of asteroid mining, and then probably establishing colonies, and then there is going to be much more that will come our way in different forms of war, where humans will have to fight wars with other species that are out there. So we will have to come together as a humanity, as one human species, to decide what is important to us, whether we should come and solve the complex challenges facing humanity first, so that we can prepare ourselves for the wars that are coming our way, which we have no idea how they are going to emerge. So let's put our thoughts and our innovation capability and our intelligence towards figuring out how to protect the human species and humanity, so that we should not waste our ideas in innovation, intelligence, and investments on just fighting with each other for just some power. So there are a lot of questions that the citizens of each country will have to decide or come up with proper responses. And I think these communication technologies are probably going to help us, because it is making the world much smaller, and everybody is able to get real time feedback. They are able to see real time what is happening across nations. So perhaps it will help us overcome these cultural challenges and the complexities that has played major role in the wars that we have fought over the years. But if these transnational challenges continue to have a predominant role in the interstate relations, how will we use the question that we citizens will have to come up with, or understand and evaluate and respond to, is that how will we use each of these emerging technology, from communication technology to virtual reality to augmented reality to brain net and gene editing, and all of them, to solve the conflicts that are coming our way. And do you see that dialogue will become more effective between decision makers if we use these communication and brain computer interface technologies that are we are developing to improve communication, so that we can understand each other much better, and we can apply all these technologies to create, to reshape the conflict negotiation across nations. Do you see that we'll be able to do that in the coming years?
Yes, I think, and I like very much your main point about humanity. The basic logo of my thinking is that the human spirit must confront challenges that are orders higher by tribes of Homo sapiens fighting each other. History is history. We could afford wars in the history until the time we invented the nuclear weapons. We cannot afford wars anymore, at least large-scale wars. So we have to start from the point about the future of humanity, which in fact is the future of life, because humans cannot exist without the rest of the living biology organisms. So I would support very much anything connected with education and enabling people to become more self-aware of their own personal interests, and they are very much projected on the strategic interests of humanity, because you're thinking about yourself, your parents, your kids, your grandkids, and so on. And this is the strategy of human values in the future. So if we massively realize that if school and education helps this process, that with the current technologies, any war is destroying values for everyone on the planet. Everything is so interconnected nowadays, and the power of weapons is so powerful. So people will gradually start thinking that, well, we are all different. Some likes tea, some likes coffee, and so on. But we have to live together because going back to the neocortex, this is the only source of ideas, good or bad. This is the only machine to invent behaviors, good or bad. Because if you take, for example, the bees, they have perfectly organized system of living. They don't kill each other. Bees, they produce honey and so on. But bees don't have neocortexes. They will never design, for example, a spaceship to go into outer space. We wouldn't like this life. We should accept technologies as extension of our capabilities. But we have to put the accent on the positive side of what we are using our powerful tool for. We have to avoid the dark side, and human society has already developed very strong mechanisms, social, legal, and so on, to encourage behavior which is positive for the society and to control and punish behavior which is against the values of society.
Yes,
So
very true.
this gives me some hope for
There
the
is
future, but we have to realize that we cannot live in the same way with the same prejudices we have now. It is normal the time, and it is the technologies that changed all that.
yes. Very true, very true. That's an excellent point. And the information communication technologies gave us a hope that we'll be able to break all those cultural barriers and understand each other's culture. But citing if we see now citing security concerns and infringements on intellectual property, some nations' governments are beginning to restrict internet access and are banning all kinds of content effectively, and they are trying to create these dozens of splinter nets. And as you must have heard that China is trying to create their own version, and perhaps they would the internet would be split into two. So is that good for the future of humanity? How do you see this playing out on geopolitics?
I think it's very simple. For me, we are talking practically politics. For me, the Bible of politics is the American Declaration of Independence, 1776. In the first 12 lines, it contains everything about how we people have to live together. You are a journalist, my friend is engineer, let's say I am a shoemaker. We are living together, providing each other with our products, and we appoint some person from our community to take care of our common life, to organize our common life. And we call these people politicians. They have to take in consideration our interests, our wishes, and so on, but to realize it. So if they don't do it, and it is explicitly written in the Declaration of Independence, we just change them and find other people who can do this job.
Yeah.
But politics itself evolved in many countries in a totally wrong direction. There are groups of people who think they are elites. They are buying, in many countries, luxury goods for their personal use with the money of the people. It's not the point of politics. We have to go back and study the Declaration of Independence letter by letter and try to clean, because for me, this is the fundament of political philosophy.
Very true, very true. But how do you see this? the emerging trend of nationalism and influencing the technology trends, because so many countries I see that they're going inwards now, rather the globalization is reversing in many different ways. So how do you see that impacting the future of humanity?
Well, everything is case by case, but predominantly, my personal view is the following. If I have the politics created, let's say, within the European Union, and if I don't recognize my interests protected by these policies, I'm looking for somebody else to represent my interests. And this, for me, is the basic cause of nationalism. If there is something wrong with the current system, political system, if it is composed of people who are thinking of protecting public interests and not the community aggregated interests, so people try to find some other way, and I imagine they are finding this other way in what we call nowadays nationalistic trends.
Yes, yes, very true. Now, another thing that we also see is, I mean, in the beginning we talked about that a lot of countries they haven't innovated in such a long time, and now since many nations are still depending on yesterday's economic models because of they haven't innovated, uh, they don't have the industries of tomorrow. How do you see that playing a role in the coming tomorrow of not only those nations but for the entire humanity? Because even if you look at countries like Russia, they haven't modernized in the way that they should have, so far, countries, there are many other countries like that. So how do you see that playing a role for the entire humanity? Because if we continue depending on the old economic models, and if we don't modernize, if we continue to depend on yesterday's industries and don't focus on innovating and building today's and tomorrow's industries, then it's going to create such a divide between nations economic models, and it's going to create such a divide for the progress and development for the entire those nations and their citizens. So how do you see that impacting the entire humanity?
I agree with you that the growing population on our planet cannot have acceptable way of life without the new technologies. Um, it was very convenient some times ago, some centuries ago, the population were only a few hundreds of millions, so there was enough food in the garden for everyone and so on, but we are no more in these circumstances. So the potential risk of somebody becoming living very outside of technological advance is there, and um, there must be some encouragement measures both from own people and from outside to make, uh, of course, we go again to the government and political circles, change policies connected with implementation of new technologies. Because we all like talking about organic or food or all these things, but we have to be sure that we have currently, for the first time in history, more than 7.5 billion people on Earth. We can't have for each of them a tomato grown under the sun in the garden with climatic conditions which are proper for that. That's not possible for this number of people. We have to go in the technological um, design of abundance, and I think this is the solution for the future. But it needs joint efforts, including joint political efforts, because just have an example, if key advanced technologies are still locked for military purpose only, this is a loss for everybody on the earth, for humanity. It stops advance. From the past, there are two examples very, very strong. One is internet, and the other is car navigation. So they started like military technologies. But if there was no internet, we would not be able to talk to each other today. So can you imagine how many new unbelievable technologies are locked now at this point of time in huge, strong safes? We have no access to that. Nobody uses them happily because they are military technologies. And can you imagine the efficiency of all these achievements of human mind being released on the market for everybody to use? How much this might increase the living standard all over the planet. So, but this is again a political question. We have to solve the issue of conflict.
Yes, very true, very true. No, those are really complex questions that each one of us need to think about. That how are we going to solve those things? And if we look at the even energy supplies, energy, there is a transformation in the energy evolution now. The technology is making energy resources available to so many different players that it was not able to do that before. So this, I mean, if we are looking at the smart energy, smart grids, and we are having many different sources of energy now. So how do you see the reshaping of supply demand and the energy of geopolitics playing a role in the future of humanity?
Well, I still believe that for once, scientists and researchers who are working on nuclear fusion will tell us the truth, because since the middle of the last century, every 10 years, they say, oh, we are going to make the controlled nuclear fusion reaction within 10 or 15 years, and they repeat this untrue statement every 10 or 15 years, because making energy from water, oxygen and hydrogen, and which is perfectly, theoretically, perfectly clean energy, within a few months could change the whole picture in the world in terms of energy resources without any type of pollution on our environment. So this is one of the areas we have to expect the results coming from technologies, but as I said, they repeat the same promise for many, many times in the last decades, and we still don't have it. Technology is the one that can solve this issue of finding new sources of energy, and now the most promising idea is, I think, nuclear fusion.
Yes. Yes. Now, I mean, human progress means that there are significant opportunities for humanity in the 21st century. That is the hope that, all this technology transformation and technology tsunami that's coming our way, that will give us significant opportunities for humanity, in the coming years. And billions will be, hopefully lifted out of poverty, and technology will continue to make people's lives better, and it will change people's lives for the better. However, there are also many disturbing trends, like we just talked about before, gene editing and molecular manufacturing and autonomous weapon systems and many others that perhaps runs counter to this progress and advancement. So when we evaluate all this broadly, what worries you the most?
As I said in the beginning, technology by itself is neutral. It started with the knife. You can cut bread and you can kill a person. The mode, the conditions, the circumstances, the political traditions and the political thinking predetermines what will be the result of technology for the future of humankind. So if we solve the human nature mode of living together, then we shouldn't worry about every new technology should be accepted as a positive factor for making lives better. It is not a problem of technologies themselves. It is problems of us humans for what we use these new technologies. And this is not a technological issue.
Yes, yes, very true. Now, the future of humanity comprises everything that will happen to any of us individually and collectively, irrespective of which nation we belong to. And understanding technology trends is about understanding in what ways humanity will change in the coming years. So, as we individually and collectively reimagine what's possible, how is the human ecosystem changing, and how will the human ecosystem look like in the coming years, and how do you want it to look like in the coming years?
Um, well, I think that um, we have to accept as a primary imperative that we are all humans, we are all Homo sapiens, we have common ancestor, we are practically all relatives, and living together with our differences in our diversity is the natural mode of living of Homo sapiens on the earth. So any divisive theory based on racial, religious, ethnic, or whatever other uh, characteristics should not be taken as so important. Um, Even, there was a point of time in history where people were very much engaged in eugenics. They thought that you must find the wife for your son, which is a very high class origin and family and so on and vice versa or whatever. But at the same time, can you imagine Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest geniuses in the world, is practically an illegal child of a peasant woman and some Roman notary in the area. So there is no point in looking in characteristics which are based on divisive trends and notions, even if people want to join groups, and this is a very good theory by American Professor Edward O. Williams. We like to divide in groups, and once we join some group, we like to think our group is superior to the others, and that has consequences because if we think we are different, we are prepared to have conflicts with other groups, no matter on what they are based. So for me, the future is accepting diversity of people in any aspect, in any dimension, because basically my thinking is anthropocentric. Our values of human beings are higher than anything, and if there is some danger for our values of human beings, some danger to the future of humanity, to the existing of human beings in the future, then we have to put this imperative on top and solve the other issues. And if we create the circumstances, again, people who are capable, people who are productive, efficient, hardworking, they will get their award anyway in such a system without, because of only belonging to some group, to some ethnicity, to some race or something like that. So I'm very positive and I'm very optimistic about the future of humanity composed of people prepared to accept the
Yes,
fact that all of us are different.
yes, very true. All of us are different, and there is the strength is in our diversity. So, do you see this technology trends that they are forcing the conversation focused on our societal values? That all these amazing technology transformation that is happening, starting with communication technology, information communication technology, that it's forcing us this conversation on our societal values.
That's not enough. I think we need more people like you and Future of Humanity to attract the focus of attention, because people are engaged in everyday life problems, and sometimes they miss the big trend, the big processes that are taking place now. And this was the initiating topic of our conversation, that technologies are changing everything, and we are not living in the world we were living yesterday. And if we are not living in the world we have been living yesterday, we have to change our behavior and our mode of living if we want to continue to be prosperous, to be still existing, and if we want that the advance of humankind will continue.
Absolutely. And you are right about it. Technology is not enough because it's just a tool that we humans need to take an active role, across nations to bring the humanity together, to collaborate, to cooperate, to solve the bigger problems facing humanity. But from your assessment, what do humans value most? Is it the intelligence? Is it the self-fulfillment, success, happiness, quality of life, or what is there something else that they value? What do they value most?
It is very different group by group. As I mentioned, Aborigines, I will mention only one episode when they were given full rights in the beginning of our century, and they were asked by Australian government, uh, if you have any request, no matter how much it costs, just tell us, we shall provide the budget, because you have been in a different status for such a long time. And the elders were considering for some period of time, and they went to the government. I think Australian government, they never had problem with their budget. Whatever they asked, tens or hundreds of millions, they would have been given. But do you know what they asked? Aboriginal elders said, we have heard that some 100 or how many years ago, the remainings of some of our ancestors were taken into a British museum. And our only wish is to bring them back so that we can bury them here in their sacred lands. So this is a totally different system of values. They didn't ask money, they didn't ask some privileges or anything. But on the other side, I don't mind if my son says, well, I prefer to have the new TV set, the most modern, so I will work hard in the weekend and maybe I will buy it. So people should be free to choose what is valuable for themselves. Statistically, you can make polls and establish for whom, and it depends very much country by country. I heard there was a Cuban saying, and this is the balance between spiritual life and material. And this saying says, some people are so poor that they have nothing but money. So I'm just making a contrast, thinking to the general trend. We all think money and material, physical things are very important, but there are people with different thinking.
Yes.
And we have to accept them. It is their right to be free. As it is said, again, I'm going back to my favorite document, Declaration of Independence. Everybody has the right to pursue happiness. So
Absolutely.
there is nothing more natural than that. And no matter how people are different, we have to accept their differences in any dimension.
Yes, very true. Pursuit of happiness, each and every individual across nation has the right to pursue, the happiness. But what makes them happy? I think that is at the heart of, the discussion, that what would make citizens of each different country happy? What do they want to see? What they value? What fulfills them? What makes them happy? That we will need to figure out in the coming years, so that we can effectively solve those complex challenges and give the platform and tools and technology and necessary investments and ideas, so that each and every individual across nations, are on the path towards happiness and fulfillment, and they are happy. Now, discussing technology future is more than just a security strategy. I mean, security, we are talking not just about cyber security or geosecurity, security in every form, that for each and every individual, for the entire humanity. So if we want to drastically reduce or mitigate or solve the complex security risk in cyberspace, geospace, and space, thinking about technology future is absolutely and could be incredibly valuable for creating actionable ways humanity can move forward. They can make progress and development and feel happy and feel empowered. So having said that, what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners about your initiative, and what you would like the young generation, there are so many bright young minds across nations who want to make a difference, not only for their communities, but for the entire humanity. So, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I think that uh, when we are talking about people living together, we are talking about products of human behavior, in fact. So if I have to give an advice to my son, I would tell him, work hard and develop your capabilities in the area which is on your heart. And if you become very good in that area, you will be able to produce, design, or create things that other people will like. This will bring you popularity, money, freedom, and so on. And this is the natural way, but these things are not falling on us from the sky. You have to have the capabilities to do something very precious for the other people. You can write something similar to Ravel's Bolero, or you can paint something beautiful. You can make an invention that can save millions of lives or make the life of many people better by constructing some agricultural system or something. So, but you must have the capabilities to do it. You have to work hard and study and be busy all the time working on that. It, in general, you cannot wait like Newton that an apple falls on your head and you discover gravity. This is very rare case. Um, so listen to your heart. This is my basic advice, and listen to your heart to find the direction and work very hard to be the best in what you are doing, so that people value you, value the results of your productivity, of your behavior, and this will give you a status in the society and many of the things which are connected with that. So this is my basic thinking.
I think excellent. That is an excellent advice. So, thank you so much, Dr. Todorov, for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on the future of humanity, and our global viewers and listeners would benefit tremendously from what you had to say. So, even if a single individual or entity can understand the threats emerging for the future of humanity based on the understanding they received from the discussion we had today, this Risk Roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
It was my pleasure, Jasmine.
Wonderful, Dr. Todorov. So, Risk Roundup, a global initiative launched by Risk Group, is a security risk reporting for risk emerging from existing and emerging technologies, technology convergence and transformation happening across cyberspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they all walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. And it is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security, so if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the Risk Roundups, to watch the Risk Roundup webcast or hear the Risk Roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.